Hello and welcome to Magic in the City. This week I am so delighted to be joined by Francesca of Cosmic Coincidences. Hello, welcome Francesca.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Carrie. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I'm so excited to talk to you. I would like you to start off just by explaining a little bit about what you do.
So, I'm an interdimensional channeler, which means that I'm able to open portals with other dimensions. I use this ability that I've specialized in the last 6 years to do various things. The main one I would say is I'm an earth grid worker and healer. So I go to places, sacred sites, famous places, and also new ones where I go and help the earth heal and change its frequency. This is part of the ascension of this planet that we're all a part of. In opening these portals, I also help others come inside them with me. So I help them in their way to open up to more of the energy that they can bring forward from their higher self, star guides, all kinds of guides really that we have in this dimension that we're able to tap into once we kind of open our, let's call it cosmic antenna, and start having an awareness from a human perspective of what's really beyond our eyesight. So I do many different kinds of events and services, which are always connected to this ability to open up a portal. And I would give people messages or help them connect to their star family. And I utilize very much what is called light language. So I use frequency and sounds that hold, let's say, some light codes in them, which help people connect to an aspect of themselves that actually transcends the mind and the logical linear way in which we think on a daily basis. So it's definitely challenging from a perspective of the human mind. But even people that have not had experience in this before, once they come to an event or to a one-to-one, they all say, I recognize something, but I don't know how that is possible or what it is. So it's really a tool to make people drop into their heart and start feeling in a way that goes beyond the limitations of our mind.
Amazing.
So that's kind of the back end of what I do then, all different things.
So I want to get we were talking before about the importance of making this information accessible and making, and we'll get into the story of how you went before and after in your life, which is pretty dramatic, but to make it as user-friendly as possible. So there are two things I really want to talk about. So first of all is, how does it look on the simplest terms? And I know it's linear and I know it's a lot of stuff our brain can't even comprehend. But when we look at how the order of things, is it very much like different dimensional planes and we just happen to be on a different dimensional plane? And is it like God at the top and then the archangels or whatever and the ascended masters? Can you give us a picture of what the universe or whatever you want to call it looks like?
So when I actually asked my guides and higher self this exact question, because I started getting in all these guides or aspects of myself, and obviously the question was, well, where are you? Where's this happening? And obviously the idea that we know, and we've read in many books, that it's all here and now is kind of how it feels once you start opening up this vision. It's like this book, you can call it the Akashic Records or whatever you want to call it, but it's like an onion or a matryoshka doll, Russian doll. There's all layers of ourselves that are all on basically within the same sphere. So you can go through them and start connecting with them. And they're like if they were alive at the same time. Now, not in the way in which we see them now, but they're still there. And I see this life and the other lives that I'm connecting to as all part of this book that I can go back and forwards in and out of. And that are all communicating with each other. I mean, obviously we don't communicate with all the thousands of how many lives we've had in different dimensions, but there will be some that come forward for the journey that we're on. So apart from the aspect of our own lives, of this doll that has all these layers, what they've shown me is basically, let's say we are this pillar of light of consciousness that holds all the information of all these lives. What it is connected to a core light, the higher self, that goes then into another nucleus of light, which is called what we call the monad. And in there is kind of our spark, our essence at source. I call it source. Other people don't call it God, the universal mind. So it's like we're branching out from this. And we then ultimately go back into there, where we are part of a group. And then I've journeyed back up to there, and what I perceive it to feel as is it's undescribable and it's nothing at the same time. It's an expanse of light, and it just feels the love in a way that transcends love at this level, but even love that we feel from angels, from ascended masters, from our star family. It's beyond that. It doesn't have a specific characteristic. It feels infinite. It feels a plane of light, and it feels so nearly overwhelming that it kind of brings tears to your eyes, because when you do go into that space and that frequency, it's like holding it in your body. It's quite hard, and just the body is like, you have like trembling and it's just feeling like ecstasy, basically, at a whole physical level. And it's this light, it's this expanse which we're all part of. So that's what they've shown them to me, that we're part of this light. And in the monad, when I talk to my monad, which is, we could call it like a soul family, it feels like we're all the same and we're part of this nucleus, and it's plural. And then from that, the higher self is coming down in all these layers and having all these experiences. So we all have different experiences in different dimensions. Some people may have it more on the earth plane. Some people, older souls, may have gone through many different dimensions. And the reality is, what I've been shown and what I think many people in this journey realize, is that we've been, even in this earth plane, we've been more than human. So, I mean, this really extends your mind to accept, but the consciousness that we are, this light, light's creating and manifesting itself in many ways. So you may have had a life of a particular animal consciousness for a while, which would then maybe translate in this lifetime you working with that group. For me, one of my first readings I had with a famous Akashic reader, the lady said, you may not understand this, but your consciousness as being crystalline, well, it's crystalline in nature, and you're a crystal child at the moment on this planet, but you have been embodying pockets of crystal consciousness in planets, inside of planets. And I remember saying to this lady, well, what does that mean? I'm a crystal. It's like, yes, it's a kind of bit beyond that. You're the database of source of God that creates crystals in part of the way that your consciousness has developed. Therefore, in this lifetime, as a human, you're really able to communicate with crystals, code them, understand them in a way that transcends the normal average human being, because your soul has had that manifestation as crystal consciousness. So it's quite hard to understand, but I obviously knew something was right because I could hear crystal information. Sometimes I would see how a crystal was designed in terms of its light structure.
Yeah.
So it really resonated, although it was hard for my mind to accept. I was like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
Had been crystalline pockets in planets. So there's various degrees in which we can explore what we have been. But ultimately, when we do get this information that comes down in the awareness of the human from the higher self and source, it often is because we're on a journey where we're tapping into that expertise that has been acquired in another lifetime, another manifestation. And the higher self, in the current journey we're having for our higher self, is deciding to let us tap into that reservoir of codes and data.
Okay. I mean, it's a lot, isn't it? I mean, I
It's
do wish I'd make it a bit easier, because like you, I went, I had a conversation with a healer who told me that my consciousness is up in the cosmos. It's nowhere near my body. And I'm like, but what does that mean? I didn't know what to do with that information. And so I kept like asking around and I kept trying to find answers. But ultimately it's like, well, I guess it means I'm more connected. I don't know, but it's a difficult one.
It is a difficult one, and I think it's especially at the start of our journey, it's important how this information gets related, because that you're up in the cosmos, which we're all part of this higher dimensional cosmic consciousness, doesn't mean that you're not human right now, and it doesn't mean that others that are not having the conversations me and you're having now are not connected to the
Yeah.
universal mind, because everyone's connected to this expanse, this cosmo universal source. The question is, some of us here will have this awakening to it, or are
Yeah.
ready and able to bring more of it down in this physical manifestation. So what probably that person was trying to say to you is that you're having a journey here where you're bringing more of that down,
Yeah. Yeah.
redistributing it and creating more with that. So therefore you're going to be talking beyond the boundaries of this normal dimension.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
breaking your boundaries, basically.
Yeah. It comes back to this and this word keeps coming back time and time again, is linear thinking. It's like, here we are on the earth plane, and this is the way we are. This is our reality, if you like, that is very linear, and there's time, and there's money, and there's countries, and all of that, but it's not necessarily the reality of it. And is it possible to be here and human, but also to have a separate existence on another plane at the same time, or multiple planes at the same time? So there are multiple yous and me's doing multiple things all at the same time, but probably for the same purpose.
I definitely believe that. And for me, how I see it, all these yous and me's all out there have all different, in some ways, characters. Let's put them. So
Mm.
it's like when I do communicate with these other aspects of myself that are also our guides that come in, I would probably communicate with the ones that are only relative to my journey now. So it's like you can go and start analyzing this from 1,000 angles until what you're getting back from it is enriching you and
Yeah.
helping you, because it's a rabbit hole, right? So it's like you can, when you think you've understood it and you've got it all under wraps, the universe will unravel it for you, because there is no end for,
Yeah.
especially in our human mind, to understand and think, okay, I've got it like we have at school in a book. That's how it is. There's not much to be challenged about it. That's not how it works. It's in piecemeals. You understand a bit, and then something else will happen and open
Mm.
up. So what I've learned to do myself is that I get challenged, because obviously I'm on the journey of extreme awareness and awakening. I get some more information comes in, and then I shut it, and then I start trying to integrate it in a way that's comfortable for my human, and
Hmm.
working with it in the way which works for me, Francesca. And then we have to remember that we're kind of at the steering wheel of this journey. So if information will come down, guides will come in, and then, but we are also in a position to say, okay, enough now. The human needs to like, this is what they're going to do with this,
Yeah.
right? So it's important also to not have an overload and to make
Yeah.
it manageable. And then how does it work for you? Because in the end, we don't want to become inoperative
Hmm.
or become completely overwhelmed that we're not in a good space anymore. So it is about downloading as much as we can to challenge ourselves and push our boundaries, but then know when to maybe put a stop and think, okay, let me now consolidate.
Yeah.
What can my mind take? And everyone will
Yeah.
be different.
Everyone is
I have
different.
Everyone's different, so I have different people, and I use probably different terminology for different people according to
Hmm.
what their filter needs in order to be able to access this higher frequency, and then the person will assimilate it in the way that's good for them. So there's not one word that works for
Yeah.
everyone, and there's not one explanation that will work for everyone, because everyone's
Yeah.
also not experiencing everything, or especially these openings that we're talking about, connecting to past lives, awareness of how energy works beyond the obvious. Not everyone's going to have that. So you're not going to be able to have conversations with everyone, even if you change words. You
Hmm.
just will have different scenarios with different people, really.
Yeah. Do you feel that all this information that is coming through, and all the things that you're experiencing, do you feel that this is ancient knowledge? This is something that we've had before, and we are relearning. And so there are phrases in our language that we use, and we don't even really understand why, but it all comes back to this learning, that it's just like, the human race at some point, or some variation of the human race. The Egyptians, for example, the ancient Egyptians, using frequency and light frequency particularly. These things have been kind of lost, in inverted commas, but there are things that have carried on. So there are some principles that maybe aren't alien to us. They
Yeah.
just need a bit of digging around. Would you say that's the way it is?
Definitely. I would say that there is that one way to get information and go forward and look in the ancient civilizations that we have testimony about. But there's also something that happens in this journey where this information that you talk about that has already existed for us in other lifetimes.
Mm.
Let's keep to the earth for the moment. So in other lifetimes, like ancient Egypt, in civilizations in Central America, the Maya, the Inca, or if we want to go back to even before Lemuria and Atlantis, which is kind of, I find, the anchoring of what then happened into the other ones, this information will start surfacing within us, because there's obviously not that much practical information out there for us to go and get it. I mean, there's obvious that they had some kind of tools or help, wherever they call them the star people, or in hieroglyphics you can see signs that, you know, look like spaceships or alien figures. There is kind of a confirmation to us that there is more, there's been more, but there is also a way of getting this information from directly from our source. So as we were saying before, the higher self, who has had those lives, so beyond Francesca and Carrie, the higher selves have had these lives, and you can start working with the higher self. And the higher self obviously has already decided that in this lifetime, yes, we will access this information. Things start coming down, wherever it may start with a curiosity or a need. But us in this human journey will find that we're drawn to discover more about the energy or the crystals, or what can we do with water, or hang on, I'm becoming telepathic, or I know stuff that, how do I know it? I've not read it. So little things like that will take us back on track to rediscover and amplify what the reality is what is in our database of our soul. So, or connecting to information from guides. So these guides, as we know, can be of multiple origin, and giving us multiple tools. So each one of us will connect probably with different ones and develop a different ability or a way of doing things that are starting to break the mold of what we've done up to now, because we're at a turning point where we're accessing this information. For example, in my case, I've always liked crystals since I was little, but I didn't like do much with them apart from collect them. At some point, something happened that I could hear the crystal, just all of a sudden. So my higher self decided, okay, this, she's ready, the human's ready. And I started understanding things of crystals that came from nowhere, no book, nothing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's something that activates within us that we had in other lifetimes. For me, the crystals is very connected to Atlantis. That's where my soul had many manifestations and worked a lot with crystal technology, even in Lemuria, but definitely in Atlantis. And I use that as, for giving you an example, as guides that have come in and helped me retrieve that soul information. So one of my first guides that came in is an aspect of myself in another star system. So Arcturus. So Arcturians. Arcturians are known for who dwells in these kind of information pools to be beings, consciousness that is very connected to crystalline technology, crystalline light, crystalline plasma. So what happened, the more I connected with my aspect there and my guides, the more I just found myself coding crystals. Transcended a lot what logically felt, because it was not something coming from a book. It's not something that my eyes can properly see, but I could feel it. I could feel the shift of the crystal. I could feel the energy like expanding. I could feel a room change frequency and feel more harmonious with this kind of crystalline technology that I was feeling and seeing. So we are retrieving the same kind of information that, let's say, Egyptians utilized in their healing temples, in their pyramids as portals to other dimensions through this kind of information. But if we think about, oh, well, how did they do it? They didn't have a book there. They probably started connecting through this energetic openings, portals, to get this information downloaded. They were transcending the limitations of how we communicate through voice and images. They were getting something beyond. So in that sense, I feel like, yes, we are definitely starting to replicate how they connected to downloading information from higher levels of consciousness.
Because I think in our as a human evolution, we have disconnected from the early days of vibrations or sound or drawings or dance or screaming or however we would have expressed ourselves. And then so highly evolved that now we have all this technology, which is also, it's all part of the world, the universe. But it's like maybe the journey would have been easier for our ancient selves. We would have been growing up in communities where there would have been a wise person, or everybody would have just known this stuff. There would have been ceremonies like,
Acceptance. There would be an acceptance towards development. Whereas we kind of challenge, you start talking about this stuff, we have to also break preconceptions and blockages. It's not only that
Yeah.
it's not common, but you start talking about this thing, and it's like some are mesmerized, and some will just ignore you, and some will just say you're crazy. So we obviously are breaking a cultural mold that's been in place now for various centuries and millennia.
Yeah. And I wonder if some of that is linked into, the pharmaceutical industry, if it's linked into masculine energy and, all other things at play potentially that are making it harder. But, I was out for dinner last night with a friend of mine, and we were having a conversation about mediumship. And there's two people sitting next to us, and the tables are very near. I thought they're definitely going to be able to hear everything we're saying, and it's obvious what we're talking about. And how is that going to land with them? How are they going to react? And what happened was amazing, because the lady actually came up to us and she said, "Thank you so much for your conversation. It was so beautiful to hear such a beautiful conversation about this subject." And she told us that her husband had died last year, and that it gave her an awful lot
Oh,
of comfort to hear about the fact that his energy field is still here, even if his body isn't.
that's a beautiful confirmation. I just had tingles, like I
Yeah,
just
me
told you that,
too.
like they were saying, like I go.
Yeah, no,
So
full body.
definitely, it's a confirmation for you,
Yeah.
and that's very important to notice that, because I've had many of that where I've refrained from saying something or thought about something, and then the universe was like, "Come on, you can open up more," because they would give me a tiny little confirmation, just enough, not a massive acclamation, but just enough to make you understand I'm on the right track. It's needed. People want to hear this slowly,
Mm,
slowly. So that is important for you to have had that information from that woman come to you, and it's so
yeah.
important, even that she found the courage to come to you and speak up, and that would probably have opened her path even more now.
Mm,
So I think it's really important. And it obviously takes courage to be in a position to talk about these things. And it doesn't come easy. For me, it has definitely not come easy. But it was at a
yeah.
point where so part of me was talking for me. I just could not hold it back. It just couldn't happen anymore. It was just so powerful, and so much information was coming. I was like, it would be impossible not to talk about these things. Of course, I decide when and how,
Mm,
and the human has to have a radar of the situation. But the typical fears of judgment start crumbling away.
yeah. Which is interesting, actually, because maybe that's why so many children experience psychic phenomenon, because they don't have that judgment, they don't have the
Yeah,
preconception, they're not worried about what people think. They're like, "Mummy, mummy, I saw that over there."
yeah,
And then of course they're told, well, unless they have a mother that's, spiritual, they're told, "Don't be silly, there's nothing there." It's very interesting, our perceptions. This is what our reality, how our reality has been shaped. So I want to talk about your journey. So I know that when you were a little girl, you started to have things happen. How old were you when you had like your first encounter?
So I remember just always being very aware of energies, and at night always being aware of energies that unsettled me or there was a lot going on. But I was very young, so in a cot. So I just remember being on a cot, standing up and looking around me. I can really remember that bit, not really figuring out obviously what it was. I do remember having a lot of astral travel when I was little with the cat I had at the time. And only at a later stage I realized kind of where I landed, because I landed in a place where it looked very much how Lemuria described, waterfalls everywhere, colors that were very vibrant, nature that was like talking to you. And I was walking on water, so I could walk on the water, and I got to the waterfall, and the waterfall would start talking to me, like giving me instructions or telling me everything was okay. But I still looked like me, a 5-year old. But I could have this conversation with them. And I remember just getting the information and coming back. So a lot of that happened until I was little, and then it shut, as you say. I don't really know why it shut. It's not like my parents were quite open, but I actually don't remember telling them much about it. I
Mm.
didn't even try and tell them. I remember all of this stuff happening very much, and I remember looking at the stars and sometimes nearly feeling like the star was connecting to me. So one thing I did when I was little, my mother found me out in the garden in some kind of spaceship trying to speak to stars. And I kind of forget that for years, but then I realized, okay, I was already doing that. bit, as you said, 8 or 9. We kind of merge into society with the generic themes that go on, and not obviously it's not very common, and it kind of started dying down. And I didn't really seek much of information in terms of spiritual courses or journeys. I was very much in my very human awareness, although I was aware there was something else, and I always had this thing with crystals. But I don't come from a religious family and not very spiritual, so I didn't really go down that route until then. Later on, then I woke up quite abruptly. I feel like everyone decides how to experience this reality. One of my first readings, a lady said to me, I can see, she did a higher self reading for me. She said, I can see your higher self decided to put you completely asleep. They're showing me how your journey, how you structured your journey, which is, I hadn't told her this to this woman, so she didn't know nothing about me, but it's kind of what happened. She's like, you wanted to go to sleep completely, as in not aware of the other dimensions. So your awakening would be so intense and shocking that you will relate to all the people that are going to wake up shocked, and you'll be able to help them because you have to undergo the shock yourself.
Right.
I remember listening to her and I was like, well, it's kind of what happens. But I remember thinking, can we not stop it? And she was like, no, because at the start it's quite intense. And I was like, oh my God, waking up so abruptly to mediumship, to clairaudience, to visions, to energy, to all these kind of things, literally within a few days.
So how did that happen? What did your life look like just before? Yeah.
So just before, I'm a stockbroker, so working in finance. I'd started working from my own premises. So before the pandemic, when everyone worked from home, I already kind of set up my own kind of company under like solo trading under an umbrella. So I had my own studio. So I was already working on my own with so many computers, like a trader. And I had all these crystals. So this is what propelled me, or what my higher self decided to be my catalyst. I had these selenite towers everywhere, and it just happened with one. I bought them because I went to a spa and I went into a room where there was a lot of like Himalayan salt lamps, and I thought, you know what, I want this at home. My job is stressful, and I got one, and then two, and then three, and then four, and I had all these towers, and I could sense something was happening with the towers. So, and I would find myself holding these towers on me, and then I put them in my bedroom, I put everywhere. And then I just had a sudden out of body experience while I was working. So I was just like, 1 minute I'm working, trading on the stock market, and the other minute I could feel all this movement. And that's the day I had my Kundalini activation. It just felt like I just went out of my body, and then I was half out of my body for, I'd say, a few months. It was quite scary because I didn't even know what Kundalini was. I mean, I didn't research it. I didn't know. I didn't do yoga.
So you didn't actively go for a Kundalini activation. It just happened.
It just happened. And I only understood it was that after 6 months of me searching online. I mean, I knew it was the crystals because I knew I could feel something from the crystals. And I was holding like these crystals like on me, and I could feel something. And I was like, this is strange. And then I bought bracelets and all. So I knew it was that. And then I started seeing auras around people. So I knew something had happened, but I was trying to shut it down. And then I just felt energies everywhere. And obviously living in central London, there's all kinds of energy. So sometimes it wasn't the most comfortable. It was just like extreme awareness of everything. And also, as then I was explained, because when you open up so suddenly, and you're not aware of how do you close and shut and protect and all of this at the start, I was like this beaming lighthouse of interdimensional energy coming through. And obviously I was attracting all sorts, messages, things, that and that. I was like an open communication center. So it was very difficult at the start. And then I just went to a crystal healer. I'm like, let me go to a crystal healer because that's obviously how it started. And she was a medium as well. And she just said to me, look, you just grow into the next step. And I'm like, what is this next step? She was like, don't worry, everything's fine. You're just grown. You're just going to like expand. And I just remember, even to that lady saying, can we stop it? She was like, no. So it is something that I'm very passionate about telling people. When you do embark on this journey, it's not for the faint-hearted. You see Kundalini, this yoga here and there done very lightly, but Kundalini activates something within that can participate in everyone's body in very different ways. But it is a way of expanding and challenging all aspects of yourself, your mind, how you think, how you process your reality. Your body starts like purging. There's all kinds of things that happen. It's not just like, oh, I'm seeing my angel. That's not the
Yeah.
only thing that happens. It's like a bit like a baby putting on teeth. The baby's not going to like the idea of putting on teeth. It's going to be crying in
Hmm.
pain. But obviously, the teeth are necessary afterwards. For me, it's just exactly that analogy. It's like putting on teeth. You're a baby and you don't understand.
Hmm.
And you go through the works of this until it starts stabilizing, and you just realize, oh wow, I've gained all these abilities. Then there's integration, and then it's a never stopping kind of journey, because there's always something more to add, and a challenge that the higher self brings us in this journey. So yeah, definitely, I didn't know or seek for it at all.
Hmm.
Obviously, as the readings went, and even as the information I got, it was like, this is how you decided to wake up with your beloved crystals. They were going to like take you out of your body and boom, open up. And yeah, crystals for me were pivotal in all of my journey and the work I do. Although it's funny, because at some point, my guy said to me, no more crystals. She was like, they were like, I was going to doing some channeling, trance mediumship, when they, at the start, I went for some courses because I had these abilities, and I was like, I need some help here, because what am I doing? I am a body channeler. So it's not just messages. I will have it in my body. I can move like what I'm channeling. I just completely transform. So some people are like, you have to see a trance mediumship expert. So I went in, and they were like, I've never seen something happen so fast, and you haven't trained for this. So they helped me stabilize how I would hold these energies, and I would go, black tourmaline. That's typical crystal that you will have when you want to like be protected and all that. And my guides were like, no, no crystals, don't take anything. Know that you're the crystal, your sovereign power. You will go back to crystals once you realize that you are a crystal. So I,
Hmm.
I remember my guy saying to me, for a while, no crystals. So I didn't depend on them, or I didn't feel like I needed something external from me. So the
Hmm.
journey that we do, all of wherever that may entail, groups, pilgrimages, saints, other aspects of self, crystals, plants, animals, whatever that is just a journey to reconnect to the power within and to
Hmm.
utilize that. And once you're in that space where you think you can walk naked into a space with nothing else, no crystal, no spray, no this, no nothing, no call upon, but you call on your higher self and this energy that you have, it blasts out everything out of your way. And then they're like, now you bring back in the crystals, now have fun with them. Because
Yeah.
obviously they're beautiful, right? I mean, we're in a
Yeah.
physical world, you look at them, they're stunning, you can create with them, whether it's in your house, jewelry. I mean, for me, that's how my creativity completely flows. I love working with them. But there
Hmm.
was a moment when I was told, now wait and see see how you can do this without anything. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so powerful. I had a similar thing with Reiki when I did my first Reiki attunement, and it changed me profoundly. First of all, the feeling was unlike anything I'd experienced in my body, and I didn't want to come back in my body. I
yeah,
was so
imagine.
happy where I was, didn't want to come back, and I'd never experienced that. Obviously, you've had
Yeah.
that before because you've done astral traveling. Um, but then when I came back into my body, I walked, and it was at Fire and Alchemy where I did it, where you are a practitioner as well, which is where we met. And I came out of the treatment room, and one of the people working there was like, "Oh my God, your aura is massive. It's just like boom." Um, and I felt like pretty cool, and like I felt good afterwards. And actually, I went to your workshop that evening,
Oh, you did
and
a lot on one day.
I did all that one day,
That is a
and
lot. I didn't realize you had done exactly that before. Wow,
yeah, I did it all the same day, and I was just
that's
like
a
so
lot.
high vibing, and and the workshop with you was fantastic. It was like, and I'd never, I was, half of me was like, what the fuck, and
What's
half of me
happening?
was, yeah, and half of me was like, wow, because I was mesmerized, but I was also, my my more cynical self was like, what's
Obviously, the
going on?
logical mind is like, what is
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
Yeah, but it was great, and I let go, and I loved, I love to be expressive with dance, and it was just my vibe, and I was drawn to Egypt, so it would
Mhm.
fit in. But then when the Reiki started to integrate into my life, I noticed that I didn't want to drink alcohol anymore. Like I just didn't want to, and there were so many powerful things that happened that are just, you can't explain them, and you
Yeah.
just have to say, your logical mind is like, it's got nothing, has it? It's got to accept the fact that something profound has changed out of its control.
Exactly. And that is not something that he can, or she, your mind can necessarily understand or decide to interfere with. Like it's
Yeah,
not something that, well, I feel like this journey is exactly that. It's taking your mind out of the way, basically. Not, and
yeah,
not taking the complete its power away, because we need it obviously to be operative. But this is what it's all about. It's transcending these limitations and what doesn't make sense from that perspective, because there'll be a lot of things that don't make sense.
yeah. So if you could briefly talk about, you said that you want to help people with that transition, especially when it's a difficult transition. What did your transition feel like? What was physically, mentally, what was it like?
So for me, there's many aspects to the transition that were not super easy. First was speaking about it.
Mm,
So I actually went for a phase where at the start I spoke loads about it because I thought it was amazing, but then I just realized the reactions from people. So then I realized it was very lonely,
yeah.
because it's when I started first like integrating these star families and aspects of myself about 5 6 years ago. In the UK, it wasn't as common as it's starting to be now. In America, yes, I went to Sedona and I went to a conference there, and I performed a grid work in the lands in the Sedona vortex in the desert, and everyone was there like, oh my god, it's amazing what you've done. And I got a little following there of people that then worked on Zoom, but then I came back to UK and I couldn't really find it here. I mean, I
Hmm.
wasn't really putting myself out that much as well. So, and it felt like explaining every time felt very tiring. So at one point I felt like very lonely. So I felt like if I can make people understand that this is normal and it's not that people aren't going crazy, they're just connecting in a way which our ancient civilization did all the time, and were, happy to do and encouraged to do. That's something that really like was close to my heart, to talk about normalizing it a bit. So I felt like I have to be a bit more public about it.
Yeah.
Although personally, from a character perspective, it's not like I'm a very big social media fan. I wasn't on Instagram posting anything really about my life. So it really took a lot to go on and talk about this and have people from my corporate backgrounds, because obviously there are still some of them are there, and I'm not completely out of it, so I'll dip in and out of it. And I was shown, of course, that I'm in that sector, which is quite dense sector, because obviously the financial markets is not is not a light and happy-go-lucky sector. But I'm there
Mm,
to anchor these concepts and this information and this light. And for me as well, to see that there is light in that sector as well, because it's very easy to, once you're out or on this spiritual journey, to want to transcend and say, oh, it's, it's dense, it's dark, 3D, whatever you want to call it, but it's not at the level you're vibrating. The reality is, you realize that there's reasons why you go to areas where maybe they're not connecting to that light, because you're to bring it. And also, we're here part of this reality. Even our soul wants to experience what it means to hold light in a yin and yang scenario. So
mhm.
actually, we need that kind of unfolding scenario to realize our light. So they're playing a role for us at the same time. It's not only us saving the world. Yes, we're coming in, we're bringing in light, we're opening up ideas and bringing this consciousness down. But the reality is, it's a bit like a Shakespeare play. If you don't have the baddie, you can't be a goodie.
Mhm.
Or if you don't have the other side, you don't understand the importance of what maybe is happening to you. So I went from a phase where I realized the importance that all these environments actually gave to my own journey. And I do feel like I don't want to completely extrapolate myself from them. And I feel like I still am in a scenario where I'm bringing some information and light into that kind of environment. So that's one aspect. And then there was the aspect of the body, which was not easy, because
Mm,
obviously there was a lot of energetic stretch, let's put it that way. So starting to channel and see things will make your body obviously feel uncomfortable. So I help people understand that there are elements that we have to work with in order for our body to accommodate this energy, and like everything, there is a balance. You can't just go overboard on one, because then you'll have to pay the price. Like if I do a retreat or an event, I will have to then recalibrate and find ways of re-stabilizing my body. So this high intensity energy work and channeling and downloading all these information does require still holding your physical body in a way that it doesn't fry up in this high frequency energy.
Mm.
And also what I find is very important is boundaries and sovereignty in your journeying in these realms. At the start, was quite happy to explore, adventurous, like here and there, going everywhere, and not discerning. I was like basically, I don't know, like a child that had got a new ability to be on a bike, and I was on a Ferrari or a Ducati, whatever bike, running down the street. But I was like, hang on a second, I need to like acclimatize. So I think there is also stepping stones to realize when you go onto this journey. And in the same way in which you wouldn't in the physical go in places that are deemed not safe, you would learn tools and ways of understanding what you're navigating in at the start. So I think it's very important, the whole creating sovereignty, boundaries, setting up your space. Obviously, the tools are very important at the start. They help us think about this. But the reality is the main thing that really shifted my owning my space and my power was work that I did with my guides and working on my Merkaba, the light filled body, and working on spinning the frequency around me. Therefore, it's like we have this light vessel that can basically like your private home that can't be interfered with, but you need to realize this and manage this in order for you to be in this space that doesn't get transpassed. So for me, it worked through at the start, not having it properly in place. And then all of a sudden I heard, I'm not religious, but I heard a Metatron. So the Archangel Metatron came in, and I was taught to call Archangel Michael, which is what I did at the start when I realized that, I'm navigating these dimensions. I need protection. So Michael. And then one day Metatron came in, and I said, no, I want Michael. And I was like, no, I'm here to teach you to become your own protector. So I did 3 months where he would come in every morning and I would spin, and he would say, I'm upgrading your Merkaba field. So this was quite intense. Like I could feel the energy spinning in the last 1 minute. I physically spun around the room. I could feel like my face and everything, like if I was in a turbine, but I could feel my energy. Like if I was getting wings, I can't explain it. The energy was just amplifying. And the moment I started this work, my awareness shifted so greatly. Well, my star family and star selves came in very, very clearly, because he'd activated the 12th dimensional Merkaba. So often people see there's classes online to activate your 5th dimensional, but this was 12th, and it was quite intense. So physically, I could feel every time I would work with Metatron afterwards, I would feel my body. I would have to lay down. I could feel not here, but within about 5-10 minutes, I would then regain. And it was just like a muscle at a gym. Every day, a little bit more, a little stretch more, a little stretch more. And this lasted for 3 months. And then it was completely stable. And then one day I said, I'm leaving. I'm not, you do it on your own. And I'm like, no. And then at that point, I was like, no, I got so used to it. And I knew that was the way I was, like impenetrable energetically. I felt confident. Before I was very wary of where I was going, and is that underground, and what air am I in, and what crystal do I have? And at that point, I just became so empowered with the knowledge of my own light and my own sovereignty. They said, you don't need to do anything more. You're now aware of it.
And did it help with communication as
it,
well?
it definitely helped, because after that my Arcturian self came in my body.
Mm-hmm.
So I had messages before, but after that, my Arcturian self actually came in. So before, the communication with my star family was telepathic, and I would see images, like on third eye. Or telepathy works as in where not necessarily that you're seeing something here, like you would see a departed one, but it's more like loads of information comes down, boom, and you're just kind of aware and you're seeing it. But then they started training me to hold the frequency in my body. So I think it was about another month that I did this with my Arcturian guides, where I would, in order to speak for them, because one thing is when you're a psychic and you hear the information, then you translate it. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing is in real time, you are being a being.
Mm.
You have to have them in. So my body will shift. I can,
Mm.
and different star aspects of myself have a different body.
Yeah.
So when I'm channeling my Arcturian self, my hands go like if I've got three fingers. I can feel he's in, and I've let him in. It's a kind of very masculine, nearly neutral energy. But for a month, I got this kind of training where they were training my energy, so of my, especially my throat chakra, to hold the voice. So I'll be squeaking and doing really weird noises, obviously in privacy on my own, to get to that point where they could come through and just talk for me.
Mm.
And the discernment factor is very important, and I think that's why possibly at the start of my journey, I experienced what it means to experience energy that you don't like, and energy that is you or your guides or in love. So it's like we need the awareness of the differences and the nuances of what we experience in order to be able to decide what works, what doesn't work. It's basically training in a completely new dimension while we're in a body. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of time spent on them training me,
Mm-hmm.
just direct, without going to anyone. I mean, I did go to, as I said, to the College of Psychics and some private mediumship, just because I needed obviously a confirmation of what's going on here. I needed someone else out of me to say, okay, I'm seeing the same thing. Okay, this is a. So I think that's normal at the start, that we do seek other humans,
Yeah.
give us human confirmation, human acknowledgement of what you are hearing direct. So that was an important aspect as well.
Yeah. So it was like, to start with, Michael was like the entry point, and then it got
Yeah,
moved up to Metatron.
Metatron.
And
And
is that where you still are with Metatron? Are you, or have you
no,
moved on?
no, I mean, I work with him if I'm helping others that
Mm-hmm.
want to, when we're doing work on their light fields. But at the moment, I mean, for me, I connect to my higher self
Mm.
or directly to source, and then I'll see which parts of me want to come in, whether it's Arcturian, whether it's my Atlantean self, wherever I'm going to group consciousness of whatever that may be, animal or nature kingdoms, or if I'm tapping
Mm.
into, for example, like when I went to Avebury and we did a lot of grid work, the druids, councils of the area were very present coming in and out. So
Mm.
it depends what I'm doing, and I'll tap in. But I always ask this. I either ask my higher self, or because the Arcturian council I work with is the gatekeeper of my portal. So this portal that I go and work with is
Mm-hmm.
overseen by this, let's say, this star council, and they
Mm-hmm.
are known to be like the main structurers in our kind of universe, cosmic reality, in
Yeah.
terms of like the most advanced and the ones that are very good at interdimensional travel and communication. So this aspect that I tap into is the same aspect I tapped into Atlantis, because in Atlantis there was this blue pyramid, which was considered like the main cosmic gate for Atlantis in that time, and I was responsible for this gate in Atlantis. So it shows you similarity as how your soul had a similar expertise used in different lifetimes completely, but very similar, because now I find that that's kind of what I do. I open up these communications and exchanges, where it's for one person or a group or for the planet or for a
Mm.
bunch of crystals that I'm working with. That's kind of my expertise to open up the door.
Yeah. And when you were having this experience in Atlantis, was it a physical, actual pyramid, or was it like an energy pyramid
So
that
I've
you?
experienced it from here because it's still there. So this was a lot in the pandemic. I would see this blue pyramid of light. So
Mm.
it's higher frequency than the pyramid that maybe we would have now in this dimension. Like it's seventh dimensional, and it's kind of a plasma light. So, and they were saying to me, "You're connecting in your reality now, in your dimension. You're opening up the bridge to this pyramid." So in some of the work I do, we travel into this blue pyramid. So I get people to come with me, and go on a journey to envisage going into the pyramid and seeing, because often the people that come to my classes may have had a connection to this blue pyramid. That's why they come in probably to me, because that's kind of my expertise at that time. Talking about Atlantis, a very important, we could say, a pivotal moment in my life was actually connected to Atlantis without me knowing. It was like when I was 21, I lived in New York. I was studying there at university, and I was obsessed about going to this beach in the Bahamas. Like, it wasn't around the corner. I mean, New York, Bahamas was quite a flight. I didn't really have much money, but I really wanted to go to this beach in the Bahamas, and it was called Pink Sands Beach in Eleuthera, Harbour Island. And a friend of mine came to visit me from Italy, because that's where I grew up. And I said, look, I've planned it all. We're going to the Bahamas. My mother was like, sorry, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to the Bahamas. I need to go. For me, it was just, I liked beaches, and that one was calling me. But there was nothing spiritual about it. But we flew to Miami, and then we got a little propeller plane, Miami, Nassau, and went on the journey there. I remember looking at the sea, and I remember starting to shake and cry and cry. And my friend was like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? And I just couldn't even talk. And I was crying and I was shaking, and I was looking at it like, and I was saying to her, I don't know what's going on. I was like, I can't explain. It was like a nostalgia that was beyond my control. And there was a happiness that was beyond my control. Something was talking to me. But obviously at 21 and with zero experience, I knew that it was a past life. I was like, this must be some past life, because it makes no sense. But I got there, and I remember not being able to speak and going onto the speech, and something was happening to me from beyond. And I just knew something was in that place. And I'd seen many beaches. I lived in Mexico afterwards, and I've been to the whole Caribbean. I mean, I was obsessed with that area. Of course, my pyramid is there.
Mm-hmm.
So my higher self wanted my human to keep on going back. And I went, even without money, I would find a way to go back. Stay in the cheapest places, but I'll be going back to the Caribbean every year. And then I lived in Mexico. Then I had a Mexican partner for 8 years. I was going back and forth, and I could feel that I had to be in that area. And now I work remotely, and I still go back often. But when I went back to that same beach after about 10 years, I just heard the voice inside of me. I was like, I'm done. I can die now. And I just felt, I was like, what do you mean I can die? I was like, I felt, this is all that it was transcending, like, I can't explain. It was so powerful my soul was so at home that I just want to stay there. So I'm not going back. And I heard, no, you've got more work to do.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I wasn't open, and we all get this, there are phrases that we hear that we brush off, but there are subtle, helpings or guidances that will keep us. So our sixth sense or gut feeling is much more beyond than just wishful thinking. There is a lot of information coming through that we're not taught to listen to. But now looking back, I can really see how that was a turning point. And how actually me going back and forward I just like the area was actually me grid working all along. Me as a human branching into these energies, because often, and many do that, it's like we have to be in a physical body in certain places without the human necessary participating in a contextual, linear with the mind way. You're just taking up some roles or some targets that you're supposed to be in a space for a reason, and you don't even need to really ponder on it.
Yeah.
You may find yourself, you're drawn back and forth to other places or scenarios or some people may be certain plants or certain animals. For me, it was that area, because obviously my role is a planetary gatekeeper, grid worker, but someone else may come here as a keeper of a specific animal consciousness, and they'll find themselves either having a lot of those animals or working in that industry, helping them, save them, or all kinds of things. So it's important to see within each one of us, where do we think there's a trend beyond the obvious, because there is.
Talking about trends, I've really noticed doing this podcast that, and I'm included in this, that it was really during lockdown that there was a real awakening of consciousness. And I'm struck every time. It seems to be ding, ding, ding every time people say the same thing.
Definitely.
And it kind of leads me to something else I wanted to talk about, which is what's the end game? You're doing all this work, you want to raise, people's consciousness, but why? A separate point is if the pyramids, for example, were in a higher dimension than they currently are, if this earth plane was actually on a higher dimension at one point, is that the end game, just to get us back to a different dimension? And what needs to happen, so many questions, what needs to happen physically in our bodies and our minds to enable us to do that?
The first thing I feel like answering, there's no end game. There's no end. It's a perpetual expansion of the reality you are in and the way you're perceiving it. So we're expanding how our characters can hold consciousness and information of the divinity that we are and the higher self that holds. So the end game, for example, for me, is to hold as much of this higher consciousness that I can in the limited format of the density I'm currently manifesting in.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, I'm working, or many of us are working kind of with our hands tied, and we're having fun from another dimension, seeing how we can create and break the limitations energetically, and then obviously then culturally in the context of the story we're in, to use this energy to propel the step forward. It's like a ladder that keeps on going up and up and up. There's no end game. It's about expanding to the next step of frequency. And when we talk about expanding frequency, expanding on potential information, abilities that the vessel we're in can do. So it's about expanding the body. So if you think, where are we going? I mean, there's no end apart from we know the physical body is not going to last beyond 100, hopefully. But within that span, how many things can we achieve and what are we changing? So if someone told me 10 years ago, you'll be doing what I'm doing now, I would say that's the end game.
Yeah.
You can channel, you can see beyond, you get information. I can change the energy in my field, how I feel. I was like, that's my end game. But now I'm like, okay, so what's my next step? And I know that I'm going to be challenged. I know there's
Yeah.
no plateau that I've reached. I know there is a moment when something else is going to happen and I'm going to be able to master energy even in a higher way than I'm doing now. So the reality is everyone's got a different target and we're not all on the same game. So
But
yeah.
is there a target of us getting on a collective consciousness that will raise the human, is that an end game in itself?
Well, there is like a what do you call it? Like a wave effect. So the more you raise, the more whatever's around you is going to raise. So there's definitely a wave effect. So and that's going to happen. But I don't believe that within 100 years of this existence, that everyone's going to raise and have the same exact expansion that you're having or that I'm having, and we're both having a different one at the same time. So it's about even also looking at what lens are you looking at your own personal one or at a whole collective? Because the whole collective lives the realities we're in many different ways. If you talk to someone in New York, it's not going to be the same thing as someone in Burkina Faso in Africa or someone in Polynesia. They're going to think completely different, but they're on the same planet. So it's hard to say there's going to be one consciousness for the whole planet within the next 100 years. It's a very slow moving aspect. I do think that more and more people are going to be able to transcend the physical limitations that we have and open these doors where they can go in and out. Now, may that manifest in terms of time travel, decomposition of body? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what, and I think everyone can have some different powers or abilities. So I wouldn't say that we're all going to have the same exact abilities and we're all going to see the same exact picture. Because even if we put on the news, we're going to see what's relative to our culture and what they want to show us.
Yeah.
But we're on a planet where there's other part of the planet that are completely not living that reality. They don't have a television, they're fine. They're not preoccupied with certain things, but we're on the same planet. So it's hard to say there's going to be one play for everyone. It's where you're going to put your attention.
Yeah. So going to talking about the other thing that you do, which is the grid working, and you're the keeper of one portal particularly, or many portals on the
It's
grid.
all of not all of them, but I mean I travel. There's not one. A lot of what I do is also I create new ones. So I go
Okay.
to places where it's hard to explain without sounding like even more crazy, but it's I just open pillars of light. So these
Okay.
pillars of light is like infusing our grids with higher frequency. It's like the back end of a computer.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like the computer that has all the lovely programs that we're on works on a back end that someone in the back office, some, well, maybe we want to call it IT geek, has produced.
Yeah.
The IT geek may not even really be focused on what app we're using right now, doesn't care, but he's making sure that the thing is holding enough bandwidth for all these programs to happen, and then updates it. So basically, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm updating. So this is what they explained to me, because I remember at the start saying, "Well, what am I doing?" There's like you're bringing in these anchoring, because you're the human, and you're letting us help this planet shift energy. So it's like I'm an engineer. They said you're an engineer of light. You're putting
Mm-hmm.
light in, so then people can access more information. They can access keys for them to work with the frequency coming in, and then they can decide how they want to create their reality. So I often find myself that everything that's happening on this planet, I look at it from a perspective of someone that's creating the back end and not necessarily living the front end. I can't explain how
Yeah.
this sounds, but I'm
I-
I'm kind of helping others create what is seen at the front. What
mm,
they decide what to create, I don't decide. So
yeah.
obviously, we want to experience. Then when I go back to my other vision of me and myself, I make sure that I'm experiencing as a human, as love and high frequency as possible. But the reality is, as we know, it's a free choice. So people come here and they choose how they want to create.
Yeah. And the grid lines, again, I'm minded that it's something ancient. You know, there are the ancient song lines that are in Australia, and there's ones in Mexico, and of course the ones in England. So it's a practice that I'm thinking is has been going back millennia.
Millennia. I mean, the reality is, if we think in terms of energy and that we want to be in spaces that have hold a lot of frequency and energy, in the same way we want to hold a high frequency crystals, because it activates something within us to connect to this higher consciousness, this information, this stream of frequency that can also be not only for information, but as we know, it's healing, it feels good. Animals know when there is a place where my cats, every time I'm coding, they're here.
Yeah.
Every time without fail, they're boom on it because I've opened the portal, they're there.
Yeah.
So animals, people, we like gravitating to where frequency feels higher. So ancient people knew that these spots on Earth had these pockets of energy that are coming from lower levels of the ground. So basically, these lines are like cracks where the energy is being able to flow up freer from below, from plateaus of silica and quartz that interact with each other, are creating these frequencies that we work with. So basically, ancients knew that and called it whatever they wanted to call it in each epoch they were in. And
Hmm.
likewise, the energies of other dimensions are using them to come through.
Mm.
So, for example, like like 2 years ago, I wanted to go to. I went 3 years ago to Glastonbury for the equinox, and then the solstice, and then the tour. And I thought, oh, it's going to be fantastic. I'm going to go up there, and I'm going to channel, and it's going to be amazing. I'm going to like have all the feelings I have at home. Because at home, it's when I'm on my own. It's like most of us when we connect. It's like pure ecstasy. It's joy. It's love. And I went up there, and all of a sudden, I was cleaning the grids because at that time it needed cleaning. So I was there trying to clean. So I didn't really have a great time. And they were telling me that you're cleaning the grids, you're
Hmm.
blocking. So I just went there like if I was doing a deep cleaning. So there's different things that can happen when we're working on these energetic grids. In the same way that you have Reiki on someone and they're helping you clean a block,
Yeah.
do the same thing in the planet. So I would go somewhere. I'm like, oh, this is feeling a bit intense. So I'm cleaning. So I've gone to sites that needed cleaning. A
Hmm.
lot of places where there have been like religious, whatever we can call it, tensions.
Yeah.
And there's been places where, like I said, okay, I'm going to go maybe to this place, and one year they're like, no, you're going to do it in London, and they sent me to Greenwich where there was nothing. I was like, what am I doing in Greenwich? And actually, they put me just near the observatory, so the meridian, the zero, and they're like, you're just putting in a pillar of light because
Mm.
because there's like, stop thinking that you need to go where others already understood there's light. We're creating new pockets.
Mm.
Okay,
How
so
interesting.
so it's like creating new structures in the same way that in a more smaller format we do crystal grids at home for intentions, or we
Yeah.
put the crystals in a way in which we decide how to work with it. We can do this with planets. We can do this with areas. So it's as much as going to places that already have that from a perspective that is a bit more understandable, because there are basins of crystalline pockets that are enormous underneath and therefore create swirls of energy. Other places that have been
Mm,
worked off by other humans for eras. So that in itself creates energy. All the
mm,
intentions of all these people, all these groups that have gone there, that will create in itself, because you create bubbles of energy, not necessarily from coming from on the ground, but from us as energy beings with our intention. We create. So there's a lot of also creating the new. And I've really been pushed to create new pockets and not just think I'm going to the ones that are famous.
yeah. So I was just looking for the book. There's a guy who wrote a book about ley lines in the 1950s, I think. I forget what his name is. And the book is really fascinating. So basically he coined the term ley lines in the 1950s, but of course it's been around in different incantations. Um, and what he was saying is that, and he's an energy worker as well. So when he went to stone circles, and there are so many stone circles in England, many more than most people realize. But he said that what was interesting about each stone circle was that it held an energy, like a energy force, and each one was different, and each one was a different kind of energy. So it might be um, a joyful celebratory, or it might be a healing, or it might be a death one, or whatever it is. And I thought when I read it, wow, how incredible that this bit of land can hold this energy for millennia. How is that even possible? And it's like, and you're doing this work, so you must come across that everything, all the energies are different. And you go to and our ancient selves would have probably gone to Avery for that reason, and then they would gone somewhere else for that reason, and they may have had a local circle just for, like, covers all the boxes kind of thing. What's your experience of the different types of energy?
Definitely, every place is completely different. Just recently, when I did this Avery grid work, I did a big group. We went to Avery, and that was very galactic, and that was about opening. Well, Avery is a very galactic portal. Bear in mind, everyone experiences things differently, coming from their own database. So
Mm,
my experience is very amplified, and I tend to like really very quickly shoot up at an interplanetary level. So I can tell you at this level what's happening, but my focus is very much what am I bringing into the planet. So there's different layers and different people experience it differently. So the same place may feel totally different to two different
mm,
people. So that's important to note, because
mm,
your filter will show you what you can absorb and what's right that's resonating with you. But Avery feels like very active and very bubbly. And at the moment, it's a very important cosmic gate from other planets. So when I go there, of course, I feel the druids of the past and all of that. But it's for me now, it's like a kind of a headquarters, especially for
mm.
England in terms of
Interesting.
interdimensional exchange. So I had
Yeah.
a lot of different energies coming in. I had a lot of Andromeda that I don't usually plug into the planet coming in there, very, very present. And
Mm,
obviously Arcturians and Sirian. But for example, when I went to Stonehenge, the energy was completely different. And I felt a lot more of the people's energy that had been there. Because there's a lot of people that have done a lot of rituals there. It's a more confined space. It felt a bit more, I really tuned into the paganism of what's been happening there. And the stones felt a bit more sleepier. They felt like sleepy giants. And they felt very different, and the energy also which wanted to come in was very different. It was one energy, Pleiadian energy, and it was very calming, it was very
mm,
soothing, and it was much more mellow. So I was doing in the same places, I was helping the area shift frequency and upgrade, but very differently in a space of, what is it, 20 miles, 30 miles. So it depends, I feel like, also what's happened in the past in the place will obviously imprint the area.
mm,
And what, obviously I'm talking from an interdimensional perspective, what are they connected to? So for example, when I went to Sedona, the energy there, when I went to Bell Rock, which was one of the vortices there, one of the mountains, the energy that really wanted to work there was Blue Avian. Now that is not one of your typical star groups, but they're very, very advanced, very similar in some ways to the Arcturians, but they're very interplanetary engineers, let's say, and I was like, wow, this is very abstract. And the energy there felt very, and I was shown that there's crystalline cities underneath, a lot of
Mm.
crystal underneath that area. And there's, we could say, other dimensional earths there active.
Mm.
So the earth, if you think we were talking about, we have a book with a like Matryoshka doll, like the Russian doll, we have many layers, the earth as well. So the earth has other dimensions which are operative, and there's stuff going on. There's cities, there's realities. So it's about shifting in between this book where we're saying what's the end game. It's like we go through pages in the earth reality, and we can interdimensionally travel to knowledge and connect to energies of the area. So when I was in Sedona, I had two completely different experiences within very short spaces. The first one was of the land, of the Native Americans. White Eagle came in. I started singing like, I'm not a good singer, but I started singing like if I was a medicine woman, very of the
Mm.
land, and I was touching the land, and that was the energy that wanted to come through to me. And my
Mm.
husband was like looking at me, and then thankfully he made a video because I wouldn't even remember what happened. And when I looked at it, I was like, wow, that's not obviously not me, but it was a different energy. So,
Mm.
and within I don't know 1 kilometer, I had that completely different experience. So
Mm.
first of all, it's also what you're there for will
Mhm.
dictate what you're experiencing. And
Yeah.
if you're going there with intention, because you're, I don't know, Stonehenge, you're going with a group and you want to do the same thing, and that area has always received that, the likelihood is that's what you're going to receive.
Yeah.
For when I went to the solstice at the tour, I was cleaning. So I was basically upgrading. It's just like I was going there like a cleaner in the back. So I wasn't connecting to what they were doing. I was just sorting out something very abstract with my Arcturian family, and I was coding something, and I was making sure that the place was stable. So I was stabilizing something. So although I had a lot of people around me in a completely different mindset, so but
Mm.
that because I was in the frame that what my higher self wanted my human to do. So there's that also very important to understand that you're the filter.
Mm. Yeah. So
That's very
interesting.
important that you're the filter. Secondly, of course, you will have the opportunity to tap in, and it also depends how curious you are, how open you are, and how much you're going to tap into that.
Mm.
Just to feel it and then see, okay. And there's imprints like a house or a place that's stored energy, right? There's some places that stored the energy of the war or bombs or someone that's died there. Something you
Yeah.
can feel it. So it's a code, it's an imprint of energy. It's like a perfume that's been sprayed and it's there. And there are ways to code and shift these recordings
Mhm.
out of a space in the same way we shift them out of ourselves.
Yeah.
But what I do a lot with the Octurians is like, how can we start shifting recordings that we've stored from our current lifetime?
Yeah. Because I mean, am I right in saying that most things, well, everything has a frequency field? So trees, mountains,
Everything.
everything.
We're in a energetic. The universe is energy. Everything is energy. I mean, everything is energy. This is energy. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
everything.
water also has its own consciousness,
Exactly. Water.
like trees do.
Exactly. And water is such a powerful element. So much of what I do with my Lemurian workshops, and I've just done a retreat now in Norfolk where it was a Lemuria reawakening. So the people that came there obviously were ready to reconnect to their Lemurian heritage or database, let's say. And the main element we worked with water, because water was one of the main, let's say, consciousness that were used by or interact with by humans to heal,
Hmm.
to expand. So we worked a lot with water, and I've done workshops where I work with the water in a bowl, or etherically, or there we went in the water on the beach. So we worked with the water. We coated a crystal inside the sea. So water is extremely powerful, and it completely changes how you feel. Like, for example, even how I channel when I'm channeling my Lemurian self connected to water, it's much more feminine, calmer. The energy feels a lot more toned down in volume, but it still feels very powerful. It's a completely different experience. So
Hmm.
it's yet again, everything has energy. It depends what you want to experience, which one are you going to tap into,
Hmm.
and your filter how you experience that reality. But everything's energy. When I started opening up my third eye and my vision, what I started seeing was holographic.
Hmm.
So I could close my eye, one of the first things I saw was a trident or Atlantis, and it was coming at me. And then I started seeing the spiral, then the eyes, all Egyptian symbols, then the face of the Buddha, of the God, and all of that. But they were all energy, the unicorn. And I was like, what is this? Basically, I was looking into the universal mind, let's say holographic aspect of it. We are in a physical, so we just think, it's a physical aspect, but we are coming from a holographic energetic database.
Yeah.
So it's quite weird to see this because you don't do much of it, but you realize all of a sudden, well, how am I seeing this?
Yeah.
All these
Yeah.
codes, even like language, when I started seeing it, it was all light. That's what it's called, like language. It was all light. It was holographic stuff that was moving, and my third eye, and I could see it here. So it's everything. You realize that everything is energy, and our reality is just a density that looks physical, but everything is energy, and everything will hold its own program, and us as humans in a human body will interpret and either enjoy or not enjoy
Mm.
the interaction with these other energies according to our database, according to
Yeah.
our filter. Everything is energy.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about star families a bit more, and you know, my understanding of the inside of your head, if you like, or the outside of your head, or however you want to say it, is that you can access pretty much everything, anywhere, all of it. So it's not a question of you being a Palladian or you being an Arcturian or whatever. It's you're everything.
We
It's
all are.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
all are. We all
Okay.
are everything, and some of us have had more of one or the other.
Oh,
And
well, that's interesting.
yes, and I do believe. I was speaking to someone yesterday about this. That we think, okay, I'm Arcturian, okay, I'm Pleiadian, and then we get stuck in that rhetoric. This is what I am. First of all, we're human. We just remember or reconnect into other aspects of our higher self. But we are
Hmm.
human, and that is as divine, as powerful, as kick-ass, let's say, if we want to use that kind of terminology, as any of these.
Yeah.
It's not below, it's not above, it's not better, it's not worse. It's just different ways of experiencing source through different modalities. And so we think that these aspects are wow, but for them, us being limited in this physical body and going through all of this, it's wow for them to see us or know about us doing this. So we have many connections to this. Some of us come here and don't care to explore this, so think that we are just human and that's it. But
Hmm.
they have many, and then at different stages, you may open to different ones, and that can be other aspects of yourself in another dimension of the earth. So Lemuria, Atlantis, higher dimensional earth,
Yeah.
or different species of life forms on earth, or different dimensions which have manifested as star beings.
Mm.
So what I find is that, at least also how it happened to me at the start, because my first full integration was Arcturian, that was only what I want to do because it felt comfortable, it felt amazing, it felt like I could do so much stuff with them. So when other stuff started coming, I was like, no. And I want to be comfortable in what I know. And like, but no, it's like, that's you as well. There's more of you to come. There's more of you to come. And I was like, why? And I was like, isn't this enough? I'm like, come on, I've already stretched myself. I was like, no, because if you're to help others recognize their database and their connections, you need to know as many as possible. So they
Mm.
started making so many come in. And then when the Blue Avens came in, which is not, I don't know if you ever heard of Blue Avens.
I've never, not until you said
So
it.
they're
No.
like blue. So the first time I saw them, they were just literally all coming towards me. So I saw them for a die, and they were like these blue beings, but they had something like kind of yellow in the face that resembled a bit like a beak, a bit like a yellowy, and they had all these beautiful wings. So someone would call them an angel, but they're
Mm.
very specific. They're called blue avians, and they're very connected to this, obviously, to this planet through what we perceive to be avian life form. And but they transcend that. But my point is, they came in, and I'm like, why do I need this? And then lo and behold, within the next 2 months, I had a lot of people that had blue avian connections that were
Wow.
coming to me. So I realized that it goes in phases. I often have to like get my own connection going in order to be able to help others see that. It's not like then
Yeah.
I have the connection to the whole wild world database Wi-Fi of
Yeah.
the universe. But they made me see a lot in order for me then to be able to hold a position, not only to help others discover more than one,
Hmm.
to make me understand that more than one, but also interplanetary work is a joint venture of many planets. So because
Mm.
I'm holding portals for many races or many dimensions, that's why I've accessed a lot. I don't
Mm.
necessarily think that everyone has to do that. It depends what your role is, and maybe that you've come here with a target to develop one ability in your human form, or experience one particular theme straight on, and maybe your Pleiadian self is the one that really wants to work with you, and maybe you
Mm.
don't even know it, but that's what's coming through.
Yeah.
And then, like a lady the other day, I said to her that she had a being come forward, and she said, "Oh, that really didn't resonate with me," and I've never spoken to this being before. And then within 2 days, she got all the signs coming in. So that was a prelude of me saying, "This is about to come." I didn't
Yeah.
know what it was. I didn't know if she had already. I don't know this stuff. I just see who's there, who's coming, and what they want to say.
I wanted to ask you what being a starseed means, because we
Yeah.
see a lot about that. There are a lot of books out there now. What does it mean to you?
So to me, it means something. It's funny because at the start it meant a lot, and now it means absolutely nothing. It's a
Oh,
word.
really?
It's an etiquette. We like categorizing stuff because at the end, as more we do this work, the more we realize that we're all the same. We're all part of source. We're all like this unity consciousness, like having an experience. So I think the starseed terminology is just to help those that are awakening to this,
Hmm.
to feel comfortable, to be part of a group. Syntax helps humans communicate. It's necessary. We need it.
Hmm.
But until it works, fine. But when it starts putting boundaries and it starts putting judgments and it starts putting privileges or making people feel better than the other, then it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So what for me, what I would say Starseeds helps, and I use it when I'm trying to like talk to audiences that I don't know who I've got in front, just to make them aware that we are connecting to the essence of our soul, that it transcends just the physical form and the human reality of Earth.
Hmm.
So for me, in that sense, it does help bridge the mind to these concepts at the start. But as long as it's not utilized in a way that, oh, I'm a star seed and he isn't or she isn't. And I believe that we're all are part of the stars and we all choose to have this human life to different degrees of awareness of what we are beyond this life. And one
Hmm.
doesn't mean it's better than the other. And
Yeah.
some of us will just come in with a lot of it open. So just to help others, give the opportunity to wake to this realization if they want and connect to that part. But I don't think anything's by chance. I mean, the higher
Hmm.
self will have decided a priori what they're doing with their human. It's not like, oh, he's lucky he met someone and he woke up. I totally don't believe that. I believe there is a pre-design, and then as a human, we experience our reactions to things, and things will start moving. The universe will start putting us in front of people or situations for us, if we're meant to experience that awareness of this cosmic aspect of ourselves from
Hmm.
this perspective.
Would you liken the cosmic, not the cosmic dimensions, but all the different types of families, cosmic families? Would you liken it to like all the signs of the zodiac, that they each have? So everything is, cycle, and everything kind of like has different energy, and it's then how you can either choose to read your horoscope or you can choose not to read your horoscope. If you're into it and you really want to deep dive and you want to learn about it, amazing. But it's there if you want it. If you don't, meh, it doesn't matter. But of the horoscope, if one is the Arcturians and one is Syrians and stuff, and the Syrian is, for example, Virgo, and embodies that kind of energy of the earth signs, or however it works. Is that the kind of energy, so that each one has its own distinct energy?
I definitely see themes and parallelisms between the same star systems. And I would definitely often find that I recognize with someone their essence without even hearing who's with them, just because it's quite obvious maybe what they're holding.
Mm.
So, for example,
What am I
now I'm
holding?
looking at you, I see a lot of Pleiadian come out. Now, I don't know if that's something that you've connected to, and it doesn't mean that's the only
Yeah,
thing you have, but it's
I've
really
had dreams about it. Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Because you've never told me this, but I can feel it, and it's coming to me. So this is an aspect that I would say Pleiadians are very heart centered, soft, and obviously very empathic. But often are the ones that struggle also to be in a reality of duality.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also, they struggle with emotions and and the dynamics of the density, let's say, but of that's your strength. So because your strength as a Pleiadian soul expert, it's not that you're Pleiadian, you have an aspect of your soul Pleiadian that's working a lot with you, and it's part of your recipe as your human. I see ourselves as a cake that's been baked by a higher self and has put ingredients that the higher self has access to, so other dimensions. And so we're a product, in a beautiful way, of these essences that we call stars, star systems. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely see similarities between different people. Arcturians can be very technical, can be very ironic and funny. They're very practical. They're architects, but we can embody all of this. So, for example,
Yeah.
I embody a lot of Arcturian and a lot of Lyran at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, and they couldn't be any more different.
Yeah.
Arcturians are very up here. They're very higher chakras, cerebral, and very creative, inventive. The Lyrans are playful, obviously, as we know, very feline. They're in the lower chakras. They like being in a body. They're passionate. They're courageous. They're bouncy. They're a bit more impulsive. So this, I definitely see traits, but it doesn't mean that you can only have one. So at
Mm.
that point, you could say that in somewhat all these star systems come to us showing us a trait that as a human we can have.
Yeah.
So it's not, they have something that's not completely alien, let's say, to us, but something that we all have anyway, that we may have more or less of another.
Mm.
So definitely there is I would say key ingredients that at least most of us that do this international dimensional readings and channelings can like see as different groups have.
Yeah. And when it comes to the Palladians, my understanding is the Palladians are like are the race. They came first, and then the Atlanteans came from them in a sort of time scale,
Mm,
or no?
no, I mean, I don't want to say no as an absolute. So everyone will have different experiences. I see, and I'm just being shown again now, as more founders of, like, all the races have come in. At
Mm.
different times, they've been more active than others. But as the real founders of this planet were Lyrans and Andromeda.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the main founders. And then different eras had more of one essence or the other. So Pleiadians, also, let's say that they've all been present at the same time. So it's not like only one came in and then another one swapped. They were all at the same time, but maybe they were more present than others. But Pleiadian was extremely powerful presence, and very, let's say, the main one of Lemuria.
I see. I
Okay,
see.
so that's very Lemurian. Atlantis has Arcturian and has Syrian.
Mm.
As I said, that your Arcturian self has come through.
Mine.
Yes.
Oh,
So maybe that's a revelation for you or not. I don't know. But you also have an Arcturian self.
okay. I
Okay.
knew I had Lemurian.
So Lemuria is this planet still. So Lemuria Atlantis is still Earth related.
Oh, okay. Okay. Go
Lemuria
on.
is basically, Lemuria is Earth. It's a higher dimensional Earth. It's seventh dimensional Earth. So
Uh-huh.
Lemuria existed before Atlantis, and Lemuria was when the consciousness of the human being species was at a seventh. It was between five and seventh dimensional, and life was in symbiosis with the whole planet. So the symbiosis between nature, animal, the elements, the water elements, the fire, the earth, the air, everything was communicated in a way that we could not comprehend now. There was a lot of telepathy, there was a lot of engaging, and there was respect and love. It was very heart-centered planet, and the
Mm.
Pleiadians were very present in that.
Wow.
So
I
that's
feel like we need a diagram to go with this video. Is
and
there
after
a,
that is Atlantis. So Atlantis comes after.
sorry,
So
I
after the age of Lemuria, at some point they're like at the same time together. There's
mhm,
Atlantis forming. So we can see that Lemuria was more based in the area of the planet that is the Pacific Ocean, Australia,
mm,
Hawaii, going all the way to Indian Ocean.
mhm,
Atlantis was kind of Central America, all the Atlantic, up into Mediterranean. And then
mm,
they were kind of at some point competing, but it was more like Atlantis took over, was more technological, advanced. As we were talking about, worked a lot with crystal energy. But it
yeah,
doesn't mean that there was no Pleiadians there or there was no Lyra. There was all kinds of influences happening. It was a very Earth, it was, and we're hopefully getting back to that, a very aware planet of other dimensions and other star systems like their neighbors, but they were coming in to really help us grow. So we had a lot of these influences at different time, but at the same time, free will and all kinds of stories have played out.
Mm.
And that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
We're meant to, as souls, come here to experience that. I mean, even the things that we don't like, I've gone in and asked, well, why have I experienced that? And I just
Mm.
very bluntly say, you chose to experience. Even stuff
Mm.
I don't like, you chose. That's how you were going to get to that, or this is for you to understand this. So
Mm.
it's hard to digest this pill to think that, and
Yeah.
also from a perspective where we never die and we have loads of these events and lives, it's okay from that perspective to struggle here and die at some point because we're going to have another one.
Yeah.
Obviously, we
Yeah.
have, to follow what we're talking about, you have to have that credo, that belief.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot because, I mean, you know, talking with me, who I'm very open-minded, I've read a lot, I've had a lot of experiences, but still, it's a massive,
Yeah.
mentally, there's so much to try and,
It stretches.
it's, yeah,
It's stretching, but the reality, as we were saying before, you decide how much you want to get stretched, and you should not go into an obsession to try and understand it all and
yeah,
pinpoint it down, and to take it in piecemeals and see what works for you if it's enriching your current scenario. Because there's no way that it's said that you have to understand this and have to have all these experiences to have a successful life for why you're here.
yeah,
We're not all on the same journey, right? There's people that play tennis and have fun and have great time with it, but they're not Federer and Nadal. But they don't
yeah,
care. They have fun. I
yeah,
mean, but there's levels to which we can tap in and enjoy. And
yeah,
then some of us may decide or have decided that before that we're to be of service and then before go more deep into it. But, to be taken in the small doses in the way in which you can assimilate.
yeah,
And to the basis of all of this, and of I would say, of of happy and nourishing way of living, is not to obsess with trying to understand and having everything under control, whether it's knowledge of the universe, whether it's your own life. If you can be in a space where there is that little bit of surrender to not knowing it all, to not controlling it all, to tapping
mm,
in and utilizing what you can bring in to evolve and to grow and to feel good, then that's the key. Because
yeah,
otherwise you can go insane trying and understand it all. There was once that I went to my family, was like, explain to me something. And they're like, there's no point, you don't understand. Your human brain cannot understand. And they tried to say something. Obviously, telepathy works out. We translate with our English, or I think in Italian as well. So often it comes in Italian. But that is me translating. That's my filter. They're not speaking in Italian and English. Okay,
mm,
so they were giving me the concepts. I was translating them, and they didn't make any sense. And they said
yeah,
to me, "We told you it doesn't make sense." They were like, "There's no need for you to understand what's not in your reality right now."
yeah. I mean, I think that's such an important lesson because having ha- ge- uh, uh, assigning information and facts to things isn't necessary sometimes.
Yeah,
Um, for me, I find it useful because I'm on a journey of learning and wanting to um, learn as much as I can.
you'll create your own way of holding knowledge that you remember from an inner connection, or even books are meant, some of them, to read to activate us. So
Yeah,
whatever way you get to a point where you start beaming it out and you're creating with it and you're using it to find new ways to be and to share, it doesn't matter. If it's for you reading 10 books a week, that's fine.
yeah,
If it's for you to channel, that's fine. If it's for you to be on your own under a tree, whatever works for you
yeah,
to get to that point where you can create at a high level and be happy, obviously, while you're doing all of this. That's the only thing that
yeah,
works. That's important for you in the end. So just don't limit yourself. I mean, because sometimes things that are logical in books carry a lot of information, but we're going forward, we're creating, we're not going backwards, we're not reliving Egypt, we are
yeah,
creating new. And I don't know if it was in the channeling that I did with you in Egypt, where we went in the holes of Amenti with Thoth, and he said, you're with the ascended masters and the deities in this hall, but you're to create new. Do not replicate. Do not try and think that
Yeah.
you have to do the same. Get inspiration. We can connect into them to have our energy like expand and help, because they can help with that. But the reality is we're the one that want to create the new. What are we
Yeah.
going to do with what do we have? Like, for example, someone said to me 10 years ago, I was going to structure jewelry and crystals in the way I do. I wouldn't even understand what they were talking about.
Mm.
But it just came to me, and it was something I did at Atlantis a lot, and what I've done in other lifetimes. It just boom came, and I was like, okay, it's happening, and in a different way. So it's keep an open mind. Obviously, it's necessary for these works,
Yeah.
but also have that thirst, that I'm getting Italian words, that desire to do something different than what you did in another lifetime.
Yeah.
Time we've got different modalities, we've got different tools, we've got different challenges, we've got different problems. What can we
Yeah.
do? There's so much that we can invent. I always thought at the start, I was like, my God, and actually I'm doing a lot of that at the moment. It may change where I'm doing one-to-one healings, doing typical healing stuff. But the reality is there's a lot of people that are inventing stuff where it's for how to teach children or new products, or how can we improve the food that we eat. And that
Hmm.
is all expanding of consciousness stuff. And
Yeah.
it's not shouted upon like, oh, I've had enlightenment, I've had Kundalini, but I am bringing down a new way. So that's what it is in the end.
Yeah. And that's what it feels like to me. It's something new,
Yeah.
a whole new concept
Yeah,
working towards.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. But when we
Mm.
are shown these lives, and we're shown, especially because we're talking a lot about energy, modalities, and a remembrance that we can work with energy in an expanded way, because obviously they haven't taught us at school. So
Mm.
from somewhere we need to get this empowerment, and it's coming directly from our channel.
Yeah.
This is just enabling us to get the confidence and the discernment of energy and this and that, and even the things that push us are there to remind us that we have abilities and antennas, sensors of energy that we didn't know we had. So
Mm.
you end up thanking those people and those scenarios that have challenged you, that made you uncomfortable, that have pushed you for protection, this and that, because they've made you aware of how you perceive stuff, your abilities, then to shift it to alchemize. So I've realized that, I always say, more challenges are coming, and I obviously think, oh my God, hopefully they're not too not too challenging. But that's how we expand.
Yeah.
How we
Yeah.
expand.
Amazing. So to finish off, I was wondering, is there any messages that you want to bring through from
So
anyone?
so for me, I would say there's definitely a lot of Pleiadian energy coming through right now. I don't know if you want some light language, but beyond that, the main thing that I'm hearing is that yes, it's great to connect to your star family, and yes, they're all there ready to connect. But please do not think that they are a solution, an answer, or better than what you're capable of doing with the tools that you've been given and that you decided to take on. So
Hmm.
this is really important, that the ones that are on this journey, that do not get lost in transcending the human form of experiencing this lifetime, of creating with the tools that you've got. They're really showing me this thing to don't negate. I get this a lot, but they're showing it to me again now, to not negate what you're capable of doing, and to not think, oh, it's not enough, or in that dimension it goes quicker. Am I going to be like them? Are we going to be able to create an apple out of nowhere? As people say, once you're in the fifth dimension, you just create like this with a click of a finger.
Hmm.
Because once you're in that dimension, clicking with a finger like that, an apple, you will want something else. It's just
Hmm.
how creation wants to constantly expand. Creation will just want to keep on expanding. Once I had student selves come in and answer a question to someone, and there was like, how can I be more and do what I'm doing at Arcturus? They were like, I want to get to that point, and they were like, they're like, calm down, because we want to get to another point of the ladder. We are trying to go to another. You don't end. And also, they showed us that because your soul is connected to all these dimensions that can work together, when you're working to go through them, you going up enables the soul to have more frequency and go up in the ladder higher. So although we see ourselves in a lower dimension, they're in a higher dimension, they were showing to me like the ladder wouldn't hold without us on a lower level holding the ladder up. It's all
Mm-hmm.
interconnected. It's all linked, and nothing is better or worse than the other. So they're just showing me to not transcend and want to be straight away and rush into where we're going. Like a lot of, are we going to change planet? Are we going to do that? To be a bit more in the now, enjoy the openings that we're having and creating what we have now, and to not rush it and not experience the little steps that are magical in itself. That's just generic for the whole planet, people that are ascending and that are looking for the next step. And because there is in this community often who wakes up to their star essence and guides, oh, take me off on a spaceship, or these kind of phrases, or oh, I can't bear life on Earth anymore. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we've chosen all to be here. No one's
Yeah.
flung us down. The soul has chosen to have this experience. And it's like the grass is greener, always green on the other side. Even when you're in these dimensions, it's not like it's the end game, as we're saying, and they're fine and then it's all wonderful, because they will be challenged in some way to go to their next step. It doesn't end.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
Yeah.
end. It never ends.
Yeah. It's such a big shift of perception, to really get what you're saying. It's quite a lot.
It's a lot, and obviously, we can't always be in that frame of mind, and we're in a quite infinite world, and resources are scarce, and we have to find a way of living. So, but that is part of the challenge.
Mm.
There've been times when I haven't had actually many encounters, touch wood or toccaferro, as we say in Italian, with medical issues. But like I was like at the doctor some time ago, and I was asking, why am I in here? And they were laughing. It was like, you wanted to feel what it meant to be in a body, didn't you? This is what a body feels like, a vessel that needs maintenance.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a reason why we're here, and we want to experience what we want to experience. Of course, it's not easy to digest that when it's not nice. And although I have all this information, there are moments when I'm complete in my human mind, and I'm okay to be in my human mind, and I will have my human reactions. And although
Mm.
I know I have a button to go into another state very quickly, sometimes I don't even decide to press that button because
Yeah.
I want to be in my human experience. And I'm
Yeah.
so entrenched in that human experience, and I'm so living it. I'm like, I don't even want to press the button and go out of it. I mean, I have pressed that button a few times where I completely shift and whatever I'm experiencing doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
it can be done. But the
Yeah.
reality is, I feel like the urge not to transcend, and I want to like live everything that I'm experiencing. So opening up to these concepts is fantastic. And it's great, and it will give you bigger goggles, lenses to live with.
Yeah.
Transcend small problems in a more lighter, quicker way. Also, this work that we do, because it's all through the heart, it really does give you the opportunity to see life form in a different way. Like I feel frequency from plants, and I speak to animals telepathically often, which never happened because I'm working a lot with this heart consciousness. And the Lemurian workshops that I do really activated for me that now we are talking about it being Lemurian. But the
Mhm.
reality is, you can go to someone else and not use that word and say, let's work with our heart.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's really important to know that words used help, but are not necessary. It's the
Yeah.
intention and that feeling that in the end transcends species. That feeling of love and going into the heart is ultimately where we're all going back to.
Yeah.
It's expanding the heart, helping the mind navigate this physicality, but it's going into the heart. And then when you're in that heart space, it's a cliche, but everything is different. The way you relate to others is different. The more you are holding this frequency, the more people relate to you differently. And you'll see the more you work with your heart frequency, how animals come up to you in a different way. Or
Yeah.
it really does shift. So
Yeah. That's amazing. Would you be open to giving a small demonstration of what people could expect, like what it looks like when you channel?
so I can bring forward some Pleiadian light language.
Okay.
Of course, the receiving of it is really depends on the person that's receiving it. So how
Hmm.
you feel and how you've opened up. But just a very quick example. So open sacred space for everyone that is tuning into our connection to Pleiadian eighth dimension. Ta enara oyo koasa, tashi yoro oyo neankayato, toro yo nea yankantara, kulorukua yanarakia. Kasara noa, koyo nea kantala, koyo choko ayantala royo, kayana harmony, mind and heart, tashaya norokoa, Keyanea okoa. Tasayara ora nea koa. Kiara nora swa. Kasha sirania. Kuyo noara yako. Tushiurana. Tashinoro kuyone. Tiyanea ohakeanta. Kushusura yanea ora. Kayanela rata siroko. Tashiniro oyoko. Turanea arako. Tashiniro. They're placing a crown of light on your head. Tashinurankeanta. Tayanera ki oa. Tasa onkantene. Kalaro oyonkone. Kasa inio oa. Tashinira ki. Koloro ankantana. Kasiroko toshinia. Kayanoro oka. Tashinaraka. Thank you, sister, for spreading your light. Tashinoraki.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. Thank you. How,
So I
how,
could feel it really, and I could kept on. So obviously, different people will feel different things, and obviously, if you've never heard light language, it's going to be hard to tune in. But it's quite interesting because I kept on seeing this crown of light on your head, and I was just didn't know if to say it. And then they just said, "Let us say it," and
yeah.
they said, "We're putting this light crown just to this is specifically the crown was specifically for you. The transmission is for everyone to drop into the heart very calmly and
Yeah.
align, and that's often how they show how to harmonize heart and mind. But then they were showing me this crown appearing on your head, just as a reminder to remember your queen kind of power. Okay, so to empower yourself. That's why they were putting this crown of light to show you that the power that you have with light.
Beautiful. I feel so calm. It's crazy. I feel like just like, I don't
It's
know, to be on a
diffused.
beach or something. Say
Yeah,
again.
it's diffused the energy.
Yeah.
It's made it go, and it's gone like very mellow.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
every
Thank you.
energy, every energy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So how can people find you? Instagram. What's your
Yeah, it's
Instagram?
Instagram, my website. I have a crystal channeling studio here in London in Angel, and I do like one-to-ones or small groups there, or I do events at other places. It depends. I'd either do them with crystals, which obviously is one of my main things in this physical world. I have about over 500 crystals there. They're mainly from the Himalayas, which also is a soul connection for me because I have had lives there, and I have a connection with that particular crystal, and it's a beautiful crystal. It's called Samadhi quartz,
Mhm.
which means connection to oneness. And when I first started accumulating it, I didn't know about it, but it is that crystal of enlightenment. It really connects the heart to crown, to higher self. So whereas normal rose quartz tend to work just with your heart, Samadhi works with higher self a lot and unity
Yeah.
consciousness. So it really brings you into a space of
And that's
transcending your ego, yourself, and going into that higher love state. And so that, yeah, there I do channelings and I get codes for people. Either I do digital art with this light language for them, or I encode jewelry. So I encode it for the person that's coming with their own message or the crystal. So everything really boils down to channeling the information and bringing the light into different vessels, whether it be a painting, a crystal, a jewelry, or more so like the grid work that I do. More and more people are coming to that,
yeah.
drawn to just be part of a group and remembering this connection to the earth, because rising in consciousness and this enlightenment state that we're in brings you a connection to everything. It's the samadhi, it's the connection to everything. So the plant, the earth, you want to be together, you want to be in spaces, and you just feel like you want to be like in these sites where other people have done that as well. So yeah, there's various different things that you can see on my Instagram that I do quite a lot.
Amazing. And your website is cosmiccoincidences.com? Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you today.
Thank you
Um,
for calling me on, and it's been lovely talking. And I'm sure we're going to meet again in real life.
yes, yes, I'm sure we will very soon. Okay, well, thank you,
Thank you
Francesca.
so
Thank
much.
you so
Take
much for
care.
today. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
Bye.